If you build an empire on the name of Jesus Christ, but it's not about Jesus Christ, it's going to come crashing down at some point, and you're going to embarrass yourself and really embarrass the church in the process.
It's pretty easy to kind of catch the people that are in it for the wrong reasons, or are going to start in Christian and want to flip to secular, whenever they get sort of a platform or whatever. Like, we can sniff that stuff out pretty quick around here. And it's they usually don't even get signed, much less, get a chance to release an album or a song.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. So with that in mind, let's jump right in to this week's episode of Becoming Something.
What's up, podcast world? It's your boy JP. I'm usually in the studio with Nate and Kathy, but man, they have deserted me today. They have left me alone. So I knew it'd be by myself. I wanted you guys to hear from someone special. And I know recently we talked about just the music industry. Don't worry, we're not reinventing the podcast to be all about music. But I've been fascinated by how the music industry has changed. So I brought on a friend of mine. He is the president of Brickell Entertainment. He has managed a lot of the people that you have heard on the radio. Just welcome my friend Scott Brickell. He looks like Santa Claus, by the way. I should have said that. Kind of like Santa Claus meets ZZ Top, like the cool Santa Claus.
Okay, all right.
They don't know who ZZ Top is, though, so I lost everyone on that.
Right.
How are you doing, bud?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Are you kidding me? So you wrote a book. Tell me about that.
It's one of those things that, I never thought in a million years I would do, but if the Lord wants you to do something, you just you follow his lead. I have been given the same talk for probably 15 years. And that's just whenever someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I think I want to be an artist, or I want to be in the music business." I just have given the sort of the same spiel over and over. And I ended up putting it into a Prezi presentation. If you go to Prezi.com, they've got, these, pre-made presentations, and you just kind of click in, and, it's real easy to make a presentation. And a lot of the times I'm giving them to a high school kid or a college kid, and I'm with their parents, right? And so the dad always wants something to look at. So I made this presentation, and I've given it hundreds and hundreds of times over the years. And back, I want to say it was in the fall of 19, I went to Liberty, and David Nasser had me in to speak to his group of like 70 convocation students.
Hate that guy.
I know, right?
He's the worst.
He is the worst. But he had like 70 students on, like, scholarship or whatever, that was helping with his convocation for leading worship, and then his Bible study on Wednesday nights. And I gave the talk to them using my Prezi presentation. And after I was over with, they just, I just said, "Hey, if you guys want to do Q&A, I'll tell stories, whatever." I did about an hour presentation, and then I did a 3-hour Q&A afterwards, just because they were asking real questions. And I walked away from there going, "Man, I need to turn this Prezi into a book at some point," because, the knowledge that I have in my head from doing it for over 30 years, I just think it can help kids, kind of navigate if they want to do it, for sure. If they want to do music as a hobby, if they want to be in the business, but not be on stage, or be on stage but not be the lead singer. Yep. there's a ton of jobs in and around the music business that exist.
Okay, if you're still with us, because we lost millions of listeners as soon as I said Nate and Kathy weren't here, and they're like, "Oh man, what?
Ouch.
I'm out." And so, not because it's you, because it's just me. But if you're still with us, I want to put this here because I do podcasts about books all the time, and they always at the very end talk about the book, and I'm like, "Who's still listening?" At the very end, it's The Business Behind the Song, okay, by Scott Brickell. We're going to talk about why that matters, but if you are remotely interested in music and a follower of Jesus, or even if you're not, if you just find yourself on the Becoming Something podcast and you don't have an interest in Jesus, but just music, do not do anything else next other than go and get the book, The Business Behind the Song by Scott Brickell. This is the expert. Okay, like we've had other artists on. We've talked to recording artists even recently. This guy he's the Pharrell Williams of Christian music. Like, just don't go anywhere else. Hang in there with me. And so, if you saw the movie Mercy Me, or no, I guess the movie's called I Can Only Imagine, right? Okay, if you saw the movie I Can Only Imagine, we saw it in the theaters, my daughter and I. You were played by Trace Adkins, right?
I was.
They were like, who is the right? And it was amazing. That he's your brother from another mother, man.
Dude, I'm a lot better looking than Trace Adkins.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with you there, but I'm just saying you guys looked like y'all were separated at birth. That's all.
Yeah. Whenever I showed up on set, they stuck us in director's chairs, and we were just watching the scene while they were shooting, and then between takes, there's plenty of time, so we got to know each other, and it was pretty crazy. Like, we both grew up on farms, we both did sports in college, we both don't care what people think about us, so we just sat there and chatted, and he was like, "This is going to be easy." So,
How have you seen the industry change? Because, like, let me explain the heart behind the question. I used to do a series every year called Lyrics and Lies. Okay. Where I would pick the top songs of that time, right? And I would take the songs, and then I would teach the Bible from the song. I would say, "Hey, this is what the song says. Here's what the Bible says." And so it was Eminem, it was Taylor Swift, it was Beyonce. We were just grabbing the hit songs. Well, the top 100 has changed so much. Like now, if I go look at the top 10 songs right now, I guarantee you I've heard of one of them, and not just because I'm old and irrelevant, but because I'm maybe old, but I'm fighting to stay relevant. But it's because the song, it's just the whole industry's changed with Spotify, but really even TikTok and social media. It seems like people like to listen to artists no one else has ever heard of. And there's just like a big wave of shift. I mean, I don't know that there's ever been a shift bigger in the music industry than the one that we've recently seen. What would you say to that?
Well, interestingly, the first chapter of my book is titled "Nothing's Changed." So I hear what you're saying. Everything's changed for sure. But in my opinion, nothing's changed in that it's still hard work. Like, you got to get up every morning and just grind it, and you're going to be told no a bunch. But to answer your question, like, music has become so much easier to make, to put out. You can make a song in the morning and put it out that afternoon. If you've already got your own accounts and everything, and you're kind of set up to do that. So the airways are more congested. There's more competition. There's more distractions, out there. And so you just got to keep pushing forward. And what I love about how the music has changed in the music business is that you really can get instant feedback. And if you put something out, if you make it in the morning, put it out that afternoon, by the next day it could go viral, or it could be crickets. And one of my biggest suggestions to people is write a song and go sing it live. Before you even put it out. And that way you've got some hardcore interaction with someone who doesn't know you. Like, if you write a song and you go play it for your spouse or your mom or your grandma, like, everybody's going to love it, and grandma's going to give you money. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the norm. But if you write a song and go sing it live and don't introduce it, don't set it up, don't talk about it and say, oh, this is, for my grandmother who passed away, or this is for, a broken relationship or whatever. If you just write a song and go sing it live without introducing it, the fans are going to tell you pretty quick if you got something or not. So, it's music is the one thing that can open up your soul. It's got the key to your soul that nothing else can touch. And it's also a time machine. Music can take you back to whenever you were in high school, whenever your kids were born, whenever you got married, whenever you had a bad day, or, when you broke up or went to prom or whatever. Like it can instantly take you back to a time and place that, you had a great time or a horrible time. And, it's such an amazing thing. And the fact that it's more accessible, it's more consumed now than ever before. There's more ways to play it with, it's obviously on your phone now. It's easier. You can put your own playlist together and go work out and listen to exactly what you want to, without really hardly working at it at all. I mean, back in the day, you had to pull out your cassettes and, do cassette to cassette copies and try to make a crappy playlist or whatever. But nowadays it's so easy to consume in exactly the form you want it to. And it's interesting to see how it's changed, but at the same time, it's a lot of hard work, and it's not just gonna, you might get lucky with a song that people like and get a little bit of success, but it's a 10-year process, in my opinion, to really get, learn who you are as an artist, and figure out, what you want to sing about, and then start connecting with fans on that level.
I want to talk about the economics of the industry, but before we go there, let's just camp there for another minute. So if somebody's listening, they're a young aspiring artist. Let's just say they got it, man. The it factor, they're good. I mean, I think about my friend Morgan. She's there in Nashville, going to Belmont. She's grinding on just working on Broadway, getting gigs, writing music. I've heard her stuff. It's amazing. I mean, I'm like, I feel like Taylor Swift would pick this up and put it on the next album. Like, what would your advice be to them where they're like, hey, I'm doing all the things? I mean, is there like we don't believe in luck, but is there like just like an aspect of it that you just need a break? I mean, you got to be at the right place at the right time, or what are there's variables and constants. What are the constants that you would say to focus on?
Be a good hang.
That's good.
Period.
That's good, because you are.
Be a good hang, man. Just be a good hang. Don't be annoying. Don't, just be a good hang, Just like learn how to hang out and chill. And, it's going to come, it'll come if you just, if you try to cram it down people's throats, if you're always like, hey, did you check out my music? Like, text people about life, text people about funny stuff, text people about, not your music.
Yeah. Be helpful.
Be a good hang. Yeah.
And be helpful. That's always the is like, hey, be helpful to people. Zig Ziglar said you can have anything you want in life, just help everyone else get what they want. And it was actually written on the wall of his office. And I went in there, and we were actually talking about working on a book together at the time. Now, this is pre-ministry. I was all in, sales and business development. And that phrase stayed with me. You can have anything you want in life, just help everyone else get what they want. I was like, I know there's some questionable aspects of that regarding motive, but that help everyone else get what they want, like, that's a good word. And,
that is a good word.
Be helpful and be hang. And listen, of everybody that's listening right now, trying to anticipate what you were going to say, I bet you not one single person thought you said that you were going to say be a good hang. If I'm wrong, tell me in the reviews, in the comments. I'd love to know. But I bet you not a single person thought, oh yeah, I know what he's going to say. Be a good hang. That's great. That's a great word.
Totally.
So what about the economics of this? Because I think people, they're grinding it out, hoping to feed their family, or, I mean, the spectrum is, hey, put food on the table, and have the private jet. I mean, and it's somewhere in between, and so yeah, just like what would you say, like how many people get to the private jet level, and how many people aren't able to feed their family, like in percentage wise? How does that break down?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. I start people off by just saying, you want to do music, but just stop for a second and go, do you want to enjoy music?
Mm,
Like some people enjoy fishing,
mm,
as a fun hobby to do on, holidays or with your friends. Or do you want to like, do you want to make a living doing music? Because making a living doing music is just like any job. They're going to have some fun days and some, good sales numbers and some, exciting things happen. And but most of the time it's a grind. It's a job. And, I start off by saying that, like, figure
mm.
out if you want to just lead worship at church or get together with some buddies and do some cover tunes that you sing at a, wedding reception and be a reception band, like figure out where you want music to be. But as far as making it, the economics, it's really about live shows. Like if you look at any artist's profit and loss statement that I've ever worked with, the majority of their income comes from doing live shows and selling merchandise. And yes, you can sign a record deal, you can sign a publishing deal, you can get sponsors, but all the money that's going to come from a record label, like directly from the label as, to you as an artist, it's usually after a couple years because they're investing in the beginning and they're going to recoup that money before they give you any of it.
Yeah.
And so you're really trying to survive.
Say that again, because that rolled off your tongue, and like the vast majority of people, that's clueless to us. And I've got a little bit of an insight into this just because of some friends, some close friends, and in writing books, like publishing books and publishing music. There's a lot of overlap in the publishing
Sure.
industry. So you said, hey, they're going to make an investment in you, but they're going to want to recoup that investment. So speak to that.
Yeah. So if a label signs you, they've got, recording costs for sure. They're going to hire a producer and they're going to spend money on that producer to record your music. But even before that, they're going to spend money on demoing a ton of songs with you. And that all costs money. And then if they're like, okay, we've got, an EP we're going to put out, which is maybe 4 to 6 songs, or maybe we're going to put out a whole record, which is 10 songs, they're going to have quite a bit of money invested just in the recording side of it. And then they've got, photo shoots, they maybe shoot a video. There's just a lot of money that goes into even getting the record done to release. And then once it releases, you're probably going to do a radio tour, go around and visit, 20 to 50 radio stations and around releasing your single. And all the money that's spent, the majority of it, you're going to recoup at your artist royalty rate. So if you sign, let's say, a 20% deal, they're going to recoup at your 20% as you start to sell the music, stream the music, and money starts rolling in. And what's interesting is about the time you recoup, it's time to make a new record or put out a new EP.
That, and I'll just say that 20%. So that 20% is going to the artist. That right in that. Okay, so 20% is going to the artist. And there's a few people that have their hand in that bowl. Like if you have an agent or somebody else that's taking a percentage of what you make, they're taking a percentage of your 20%. Is that correct?
Which I'm one of them. I'm a manager, so
Right.
I'm taking a percentage of that as well.
Yeah, so you're taking a small percent of a small percent. And I
Right.
say that because like people ask, I do a deal on Instagram on Fridays, Friday Q&A, and they'll say, hey, where does the money go from your books? And I actually have done a post where I was like, hey, let me show you. Here's what I made on my book, and here's where it went. And I don't think people realize when that book sells for $15.99 at Barnes and Noble. Well, we'll just talk about this book. I'll say it again. The book is The Business Behind the Song. If you're interested in music, don't do anything other than get this book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it everywhere books are sold. Get the book, The Business Behind the Song. I'm with Scott Brickell, who is the man in the industry. And so that people will say, hey, what do you where does the money go? And I'm like, all right, here's the advance. Okay, the advance is what they pay me in the front. Like, hey, here's what we're going to give you to write this book. Okay, so that's a lump sum figure. And then there's royalties. Royalties are what you get with every book that's sold, but you don't get a royalty until that number has covered that advance. And so let's say the advance is $40,000, okay? So that $40,000, so that looks like, oh, I'm getting paid $40,000. Well, the agent takes some of that. The government takes 30% of that. I work with a collaborative writer who I pay some of that to, and then I pay for videos. There's not a lot of that 40 grand left after that, right? So then I have to wait till the book pays a royalty, but I don't get a royalty check until that the royalties cover that 40 grand. So you think, all right, how many $15.99 books, do you have to sell to cover that? But it's not. You got to remember, it's 20%, and it's not 20% of the $15.99. It's 20% of the wholesale. So you take the $15.99, you cut it in half, we're at $7.50, and now we're talking about 20% of $7.50. But again, a percentage goes to someone else, and so this, cents, a dollar and cents goes to paying down that $40,000 number. And the vast majority of books, and I don't know how this translates to the music industry, but the vast majority of books never see a royalty payment, and that's what the general public doesn't understand.
Yeah, and it's the same in the music business. There's a very few number of artists that are paying for a lot of other artists.
Yeah.
Just like, a lot of books pay for, or very few books pay for a lot of books.
Yeah.
And a lot of authors. So it's the same thing. And so you have to recoup the money, but about the time you start to get to the point where you're like, hey, maybe in the next royalty statement, because you usually get a royalty statement once a quarter, maybe.
That's right.
Maybe twice a year. But you'll start looking at those royalty statements, and that the amount that you owe gets smaller and smaller, and then you're like, hey, maybe the next statement I'm going to get a check, like some money is going to come in from the label, and then bam, you start working on the next record, and you start that negative number goes up again, and it's very, very seldom do artists get to the point where they recouped. So the majority of their income is coming from live shows, from merchandise sales, maybe from a tour sponsor, or public appearances, whatever. So my recommendation always to an artist is start to establish yourself regionally, and play where you can regionally, because coming to Nashville is really hard, because like I was talking to someone the other day who's in Orlando, and they've got some good things going on there. They play a couple different places. They play at at Disney Springs. They play at a couple restaurants that have live music, and one of them is a chain that has a Nashville restaurant as well. And so she's like, yeah, I can't go to Nashville because they don't pay as much in Nashville as they do in Orlando. And the reason is there's so many people in Nashville that will want the gig. They'll do it for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And so, coming to Nashville to try to start performing live is a tough gig.
It's a crazy place. The person serving your pancakes, at breakfast is a better writer than some of the folks you're listening to on the radio. That's what's amazing about Nashville. Hollywood's a similar way. Like, you go to Hollywood and there's an actor or an actress, serving you your burger, because they're really, really gifted, but there's just such a great concentration of really gifted people. But you go to
they're probably not a good hang, are they?
That's not, no, because the good hangs, they make it. That's such a great word. But man, I tell you what, that it is an amazing place of concentration of talent. And I've heard stories of, I can't even remember who it was, which will make this story not nearly as well, but not nearly as good. But who's the artist? Who's Wonderwall? What is that? Who's that artist, Coley? Wonderwall. Anyways, somebody was walking down Broadway in Nashville, and they heard their song. Their song was being covered, and they climbed through the window there, that bar, and they got on stage, and they grabbed the guitar and began to play and sing their own song because it was being covered. Like that, those kinds of stories, that's what makes Nashville such a magical place. And you can just walk down and see, some of your greatest places. How long have you been there, by the way?
Man, a little over 30 years.
Wow. I thought you were about 30 years old now, so you were born there.
Right. My beard's 30 years old.
I love it. And so, okay, this is like maybe a more difficult conversation, but I know you have seen some of what I've seen in a greater way, which is in that intersection of faith and business, right? So where the for-profit aspect of Christianity, things can get real squirrely. How do you handle that when you're talking with someone and they're writing songs about Jesus and the Bible and God's word, and you're kind of like, man, I don't know if you know my Jesus. I'm not sure. I mean, listen, you're a great artist. You got the it factor. Those guitar lessons in the 6th grade have paid off. Those vocal lessons along the way have paid off. But I'm not sure you know the spirit that you're singing about. How do you handle that?
I mean, so, there's a lot of people involved whenever a new artist shows up on the scene. You usually have an A&R guy at the label that is going to speak into it. You've got managers, you got booking agents, and sometimes you'll have a direct conversation with someone about something like that. Sometimes we all just walk away, whenever we don't feel like it's gonna line up, theologically with who they say and what they're actually singing about. But when I say be a good hang, like my daily is get up every morning and ask God, what am I supposed to do today?
Mm-hmm.
And not in the sense of, hey, if I've got a flight to go to a show or, some business or whatever, meetings, I don't change those, right? But what am I supposed to do while I'm doing those things? And, when we were eating dinner, I don't know, a couple of years ago with my son, and you said, just be faithful, just be diligent, be faithful. And to me, that really shows in people's songwriting, in their work ethic, and in their motives. And it's pretty easy to kind of catch the people that are in it for the wrong reasons, or are going to start in Christian and want to flip to secular, whenever they get sort of a platform or whatever. Like, we can sniff that stuff out pretty quick around here. And it's they usually don't even get signed, much less, get a chance to release an album or a song.
Yeah. If you build an empire on the name of Jesus Christ, but it's not about Jesus Christ, it's going to come crashing down at some point. And you're going to embarrass yourself and really embarrass the church in the process. But I love hearing that, because there's been times, I think of one specific time early on where I canceled an artist that we had booked for an event because somebody raised concern about their character, and I didn't just cancel them then. I said, man, I want to talk about this, and they weren't willing to have the conversation. I said, well, man, I can't bring you in and put you in front of
what does that tell you?
Put you in front of our people if you're unwilling to have the conversation about this. And so, man, I see you there's some paraphernalia behind you of footballs and helmets, and is that the great gold and green I see, or is that what's happening there?
We got over here's my son's state championship jersey.
Let's
right
go.
there.
Let's go.
From high school. That's his All-American jersey whenever he got invited to be on an All-American team. A bunch of his footballs from high school. This one is whenever we went to Liberty and played with under Hugh Freeze with Malik Willis for 3 years. That's one of his footballs there. This over here is Ben Roethlisberger helmet. That's Jerome Bettis' shoes, or one of his shoes. And then I got a bunch of footballs over here that are like coaches signed, and Roger Staubach and some guys like that. So I don't know when it happened, but at some point I got into getting signed footballs, and it's become sort of a hobby.
And then you just like strategically place, because there's like the Longhorns right behind you. It looks like you got you got horns.
Those were on my wife's Suburban for several years. So
oh man,
when she took them off, I was like, I'm going to put them in my man cave.
That is everything you need to know about the Brickells. They are a good hang. The whole family's a good hang.
We try.
I love it. So the business behind the book, the business behind the song is the book. Scott Brickell. I want you truly, if you have any remote interest in understanding how the industry works, or you want your break, or you're interested in music, like make sure you pick up this book. Like what's a story along the way that you think back? I mean, the story of I Can Only Imagine is absolutely amazing.
Sure.
We love the movie. I'm sure there's dozens of those. Anything come to mind?
I think the just to go along with the book, I sat down with Micah Tyler right early on, and
I love Micah.
oh gosh, that
And
dude,
he's on a
amazing.
podcast. Go back and listen to the if you ever want to find a podcast, just search Becoming Something and then your topic: pornography, alcohol, Micah Tyler, whatever, and it will come up. And so go back and listen to Micah Tyler's interview.
So the first time I sat down with him was at a restaurant in town, and he still referenced that meeting. But I kind of went over the Prezi, the book, kind of things in the book, and he still referenced that conversation today. And it's not like 100% of it's going to exactly line up, but it's going to be within the realm of, hey, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and then this is probably going to happen. And so I just he has released 8 singles to radio, and 6 of them have gone number 1.
Yeah.
But when you want to talk about a guy that's a good hang, he is the king of a good hang. Like that, he's fun to be around. He's, and that's, Bart Millard from Mercy Me is the same thing. Like Bart will have you rolling, within 30 seconds of you meeting him. And, he just a good fun hang. Mark Stewart from Audio Adrenaline, like, Phil Wickham. I mean, all the people that I've worked with have just always had, they can sing, they're great front men, but they're good hangs.
Hey, I'll go back and correct something I said earlier on too. If you stayed with us this long, David Nasser is a great hang. I was joking when I said I hate that guy. He's the best hang. Shout out Nasser. Listen, guys, young adults, people listening from all over. Like I get that some of you feel like your personality feels threatened by that because you're like, man, what if I'm not a good hang? It's like anybody, introvert, extrovert, any Enneagram, any, Myers-Briggs, anybody can be a good hang. Just take an interest in the people around you. Be a there you are person, not a here I am person. Don't get so in your head of like, what is everyone thinking of me? And just take an interest in everyone else in the room and love them and care for them. And this is the greatest commandment. Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So that's all we're saying is, man, love your neighbor as yourself. That makes you a good hang.
1 John 4:7-8, beloved, let us love one another.
Come on.
I mean, that's where it's at. Just love each other. I mean, I got into this because I was serving. So you want to talk about a story. The very first artist I met, I was a friend from like years before, but I hadn't seen him because he went off to college. And so, I just started like serving by packing up his gear, packing up his keyboard rig, packing up his sound, speakers, his soundboard, because he was talking to other people, and I was just waiting to, say hi to him. But in the meantime, I was just helping him out. And, that's what's made my career is I just serve people. Yeah.
And that transcends music, by the way. Like any industry that you're in, whether you're a teacher or a barista or a biz dev or an executive, being a good hang, loving people, taking an interest in them it transcends all of that. Did Micah Tyler tell you about the stairwell? Does that mean anything to you, that story?
Oh yeah. Oh, he's talked about the stairwell.
Come on, I feel like we partnered on that one a little bit. One of us is getting royalties, and the other one is not. But I'll
buy you lunch. I bought you dinner the other day. Like, come on,
you did buy me dinner. That was
a good steak.
Bro. That was one of the most profound moments of my life. Okay, and so we do this Christmas concert, and we've done it every year, and every year they bring in somebody to to be the pre-show, the opener. Mm-hmm. And typically that person is playing and everyone else is, they're there to see the artist Shane and Phil Wickham. And so people are coming in, just, talking amongst themselves while the artist is playing up there, the opener. Well, Micah goes up and he knew that. And he's smart, man. He's a smart guy. He said, I know these people are here to see them. Like, I need to go and be entertaining. And so he wrote songs and wrote parodies about the artist they were about to sing. He wrote Shane's voicemail and Phil's voicemail, and he wrote their like, if you call them, like, here's what their voicemail says, and he wrote it to tunes of their big songs at the time. And oh my goodness, he was done, and no one wanted him to stop. And he got a standing ovation in the opener. And I'm out there, and I'm like, okay, what just happened? Because that's never happened. It was a magic moment. It was a holy moment. And I went in the back to find him. I'm like, who is this guy? I got to find him. and I find him collapsed in the stairwell. He's like, "What just happened?
Just
What just
bawling.
happened?" Or right after he collapsed in the stairwell, just weeping because God was so kind to him, and that's become a really sweet friendship. And so those moments are just magical for sure.
Absolutely.
I ask you this: do you feel, as a manager, and who works with labels, do you feel threatened by like the people who are coming up by way of social media? I know you said nothing's changed in the sense that you still have to work hard, you still have to grind, but like, what are your thoughts on that aspect of music? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm nothing but encouraged by what's going on, and whenever you have, even the shows, with The Voice and American Idol and all those kind of things like that, social media, like I love it all. I think it's a great way to give our artists an opportunity and just to help kind of leapfrog to figure out if this is what they want to do. Like I was saying earlier, it really is amazing to me whenever people go, "Oh my goodness, that was an amazing performance," or they made it through and into the top 5, or maybe even won a TV show, and they think that the career is just going to blow up.
Yeah.
And what they forget is they made an amazing TV show.
Yeah.
And it was a TV show.
Yeah.
And TVs are there to sell ads, like sell advertising. And they're really good at making TV shows. And the people that are directing those shows and producing those shows, like they've been in TV for years. And so they know how to make a TV show, but they don't know how to make an artist's career, and they don't know how to really follow that up. And, some of them have tried, and, some of them put management teams around them and that kind of stuff. But, and, it's worked for Carrie Underwood. And I mean, you can name a handful, but there's a whole lot more that it hasn't. And I attribute that back to, I always use the analogy of, if you're an artist, get your plane in the air, do shows, learn how to write a song, learn who you are a little bit, get your plane in the air. But while you're doing that, have a balanced life,
Yep.
physically, mentally, spiritually, financially. Like, make sure that you're having a balanced life, because once your plane's in the air, if something like a TV show comes along and straps jet engines onto you
Yep.
and wants to launch you, like if you're not solid, your plane is going to disintegrate midair.
That's right.
And we've seen that happen, right? I mean, how many times has that, happened? Sure. And so social media, TV shows, they're all great. But, as a core of who you are as an artist, man, make sure you're solid. Make sure you know who you are. Make sure you've got all your, ducks in a row.
The why has to matter, man. That's what I think about. Somebody challenged me late last night. I was writing, and I was thinking through, do I want to continue writing books? And he just, he said, "Hey, you can't do this for money." And I was like, "Man, I absolutely know that. I know that. It's like I have to do this because I believe in the message, and I think the message is helpful." And at the moment that I stop doing it for that reason, then it's the beginning of the end. I think for anyone, like, we have to stay in that place where we believe in the message, or even from a secular perspective, it's like, I believe in the power of music. I believe in the song. And, anything detached from eternity is meaningless and vanity. But I'm just like, we have to stay rooted and grounded in our why. And that's what I hear you saying kind of repeatedly in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
Brother, thank you so much for being on here. The book is The Business Behind the Song. The author is Scott Brickell. He is an icon in the industry, candidly. And I know you have a ton of humility, but I can say that on your behalf, you're an icon in the industry. And so pick up the book, The Business Behind the Song. Thanks so much for being on here and for the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. To find out more, Visit becomingsomething.com.